Okay, last thing we've got in lecture 35 is going to be summations. So we're going to talk about summations in 35 part 4. So starting out, this over here is a summation. How do I know that that is a summation? Well, it's got a sign symbol here. It's a Greek letter for sigma. Sigma is for sum. Okay. Now, this over here on the right is something that we've already done before. This was our sequence. Okay. So we're going to compare what we know about sequences to what we know about summations. All right. So let's start out with our sequence here. Okay. I've got 1 over n. Okay. And that's my nth term formula is what we called that. I've got n equals 1 right here. What did that mean? Well, remember, that was our start value for n. And then this infinity up here was our ending value. Okay, so this was an example of an infinite sequence. So I'm going to start with n equals 1. So the first term in my sequence was 1 over 1. Okay, the second term in my sequence was 1 over 2. The third term was 1 over 3. The fourth term was 1 over 4. Okay, and that pattern kept continuing. Okay, that was our sequences. So now let's compare what we know about our sequences to what we know about our summations over here. So first off, what are the similarities that you notice? Well, this has a 1 over n, and this has a 1 over n. Okay, I also noticed that they've got an n equals 1 on the bottom here, and we had an n equals 1 on the bottom over here. And I also noticed an infinity on top and an infinity up here. Well, that's all very interesting, isn't it? Right? Basically, everything that we've done with sequences, we're about to do a second time with summations. Okay? My start value is down below here. N equals 1 is my start value. Infinity is my ending value. Okay? In order to figure out what I'm plugging my n values into, I'm going to look at the same formula that I did for my sequences. Okay? So my first first 4 terms in this are going to be 1 over 1, 1 over 2, 1 over 3, and 1 over 4. And that's going to continue on. Okay? Now, what's the difference? Well, it's all about this symbol right here. Okay? That is a summation. Sum means that I'm going to be adding. So the only difference between summations and sequences is sequences, we write these nice little commas to separate the terms. With a summation, I'm going to write plus signs because I want to add all of these up together. Okay? Now the nice thing about summations is that this summation here is an infinite summation, and we're not going to get into detail on infinite summations. Okay? They're going to have a start value and an ending value. Okay? So we're going to work out 3 examples now that you guys understand what summations are. And our first example is a rather simple one. Okay? So starting out, I've got 1 over k. Last time it was 1 over n. This time it's 1 over k. Is that a huge deal? No. These 2 variables will match every time. Okay? This is telling us that the first k value that I'm going to use is 1. Then the second one will be 2. The next one will be 3. Then I'll have 4. Then I'll have 5. And I will stop at 5 because that is my end value. Okay? So, I'm going to start out with 1. So I've got 1 over, my first k value is 1. Then I've got 1 over, my second k value is 2. Then I've got 1 over 3. 1 over 4. Whoops. Keep the colors right. And then last, I've got 1 over 5. Again, how do I know that I'm going to end with 5? Well, that is the value that is on top of my summation. That is my end value right there. Okay? And then the last thing that I need to do is I need to add plus signs in between every single one of these. Okay? Actually, there's one more step. I've got a 1 over 1. What is 1 over 1? Well, 1 over 1 would just be a regular 1. Okay? And then this right here is going to be my answer. Okay? They specifically say in the instructions, Do not add up the terms, okay? That's just the way that UMKC wants you guys to know how to do these, okay? You could add all those up and get a number, but we're just going to leave it spread out like that, okay? Okay, let's try out 2 more examples then, and then I'm going to let you guys get to work on your homework. These are a little bit more complex. Again, start value. Okay, they've changed it on this one. This time we're going to start with 5, and we are going to end with 8. Okay, so my formula, I've got 2 times k. Well, k is what I'm plugging stuff in for, right? So my first one is going to be 2 times 5 plus 1. Okay, and that right there is my first term. Then I'm going to add my second term. Okay, what needs to go in the space on this one? Well, I had a 5, so now I'm going to have a 6 plus, I've still got 2 times k plus 1. What's my k value in this one? Well, it's going to be 7 plus 2 times 8 for this one. Okay, and you guys can see I've got a 5 in there for k, then a 6 in there for k, then a 7 in there for k, then an 8 in there for k. I know that I start at 5 and I finish at 8. Okay? So for this one, we are going to want to simplify a little this, but again, we don't want to add it up. 2 times 5 gives me 10 plus 1 is 11, plus 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. And 2 times 8 is 16, plus 1 is 17. So here is my answer for that first summation. Okay, the second summation, okay, this one has a little bit of a trick to it that they're going to throw in there. I've got a negative 1 to the I power times I. Uh-oh, they changed our variable. Does that matter? No, because we're dealing with i's down here. Okay, I'm going to start at 2. I'm going to finish with 5. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this out here. First one is I've got a negative 1 to the I power. My first I is going to be a 2. And then I need to take that times I. Well, my first I value was 2. Okay, so that's my first term there. Then I'm going to go plus. I'm going to have a negative 1. This time my I value will be 3. Okay. So then again, I've got a 3 in this spot here for the I. So I had a 3 and a 3 here for my i's. Then I go plus negative 1 to the 4th power times 4 plus negative 1 to the 5th power times 5. Okay, so again, I started with 2, then I go 3, 4, 5, and I finish with 5 because that's on top of the summation. Now, the little trick with this one is I've got this negative 1 to a power. Essentially, all that's doing is that's going to decide if your answer is positive or negative. Okay, so if I have a negative 1 squared, that's an even number. Negative 1 squared is going to end up making that negative 1 positive. Negative 1 cubed, that's an odd number. That's going to end up making that negative. Negative 1 to the 4th, even, that's going to be positive. Negative 1 to the 5th, odd, that's going to be negative. Okay? So what I've really got here on this first one is a positive 1 times 2. So positive 1 times 2 gives me 2. This one here, I've got a negative 1 times 3. That's going to give me a negative 3. I could write that as a plus negative 3 or just write it as a minus 3. It's up to you. Here I've got a positive 1 times 4. That's going to give me a positive 4. And again here at the end, I've got a negative 1 times 5. So that gives me a negative 5. And that is my answer for my summations. Okay, so big thing for summations is remember to think of them as sequences, but instead of having commas to separate them, you've got plus signs in there to separate them. Okay?